This week we are standing out here to stop the war in Syria, one of, unfortunately, the many wars that our country is engaged in. But following the usual plan, don't tell the people what you're really fighting over, but what this war is over is the control of the energy flow to Europe.
Continuing with every kind of civil war, dumping weapons in order to fuel civil war. The United States has used civil wars as a type of acid, political regime change acid, for so long. The United States has done this so long, so we've had it with that. So I'll pass along the microphone as soon as we have another person ready to speak, but I'd like to hold up this picture of a shoe. Does anybody recognize this shoe? This is a sculpture of a shoe in the city of Tikrit, Iraq, and it's in honor of the courageous journalist who threw a shoe at then President Bush the Younger. All right? So that's the shoe, this courageous young man who threw the shoe at the destroyer of Iraq, because several U.S. presidents in a row were destroyers of Iraq. But I want to know, how come no one's saying the same thing about President Obama when he destroyed Libya? He half destroyed Libya. He half destroyed Syria, which has fought back. How come no one's saying the same thing about Obama? How come he has complete Teflon, the Democrat? The peace movement packed up and went home. It turned into the war stasis. It's supposed to be for peace. It was not a movement, it was stasis. It was not for peace, it was for war. And Cindy Sheehan, the great peace movement leader, said this. The peace movement turned into the war stasis as soon as there was a Democrat in the White House, and it continues now. So here is this monument to resistance. This shoe here, this is a monument to resistance. This is a monument to justice, freedom, liberty, resistance. That's what this shoe is, and that's what we need. And how come it is that the peace movement turned into a war stasis as soon as you had a Democrat in the White House? Well, the real movement is alive and well. America is not the center of the world. The real movement is alive and well and is continuing to make gains. So that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to show this picture. This is a picture of how resistance is alive and well in the world. You'll never know it by reading the New York Times, the Boston Globe, NPR, anything like that. We're in the heart of the empire. And it's our duty to resist. And we are not the leaders of that resistance at all. We're living in the most corrupted country in the world politically, because this is a country that sends destruction around the whole world. We are living in the most corrupted country in the world politically. We think we're bringing civilization. Let me tell you something. World War I, you want to know when World War I started? It started with the genocide of Africa and the Americas. That was World War I. That was the First World War. It never ended. It never ended. In our pride and hubris in the United States, we think World War I was a fight between Europeans. World War I was when the European high-tech pirates with their sailing ships, they went out to plunder, murder in the genocide of Africa and the Americas. That was World War I. It never ended. It never ended. And the destruction and the attacks on Syria are part of that war. It needs to be resisted. It needs to be resisted. So that's all I wanted to share some information. This is a demonstration with so many groups here. This is not the Committee for Peace and Human Rights today. This is a great big demonstration of people who are expressing the resistance against empire. That's what this is today, the resistance against empire, and we have our work to do. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters.
Veterans for Peace further calls for an end to all economic sanctions against Syria, especially of medicines, including much-needed cancer medicines. We call on the U.S. government to provide massive humanitarian assistance for the millions of Syrian refugees and to allow more Syrian refugees into the United States. We call on all the parties to do their utmost to avoid killing innocent civilians. It is time to bring the Syrian war to an end. It's time to begin the hard work of healing the wounds of the terrible war that has been imposed upon the people of Syria. We must take responsibility for the role of our own government. We must allow the people of Syria and the Middle East to live in peace.
Hands up, Syria! Hands up, Syria! Hands up, Syria!